Hi, I'm Wyatt Cash with Scoop News Group, and we're excited to be here today talking to Jim Richberg, Public Sector Chief Information Security Officer and Vice President of Information Security at Fortinet. Jim, thanks so much for joining us today.
It's a pleasure to be with you, Wyatt.
So 2021 is unfolding as a year when hybrid is taking on multiple meanings, from the way we work to where we work and to the IT systems that we rely on. So for enterprise IT and security leaders, that means adapting IT services to work securely for users at any time, from any place, and really in a variety of IT environments more than ever before. So let me start by asking, how are these new hybrid conditions in how and where people work impacting the security risks that organizations now face and the strategies that they need to develop?
Well, Wyatt, at this point, I think it's clear that the old approach to security isn't going to work in the hybrid environment. When we sent people out of the office with COVID, we've said the table stakes for playing the game for remote access are we're going to give you two-factor authentication and we're going to give you a secure connection back to the network. But at that point, we were essentially acting as if they were logged on from their cubicle or their office. And the reality is they weren't. They were logged on from an environment we had no visibility and control into, and we paid the price. We watched, for instance, ransomware that came in through these weakly defended small office, home office environments spike by 700%. So just saying now that my workers are coming back to work or staying home or going out on the road, I can just stick with those classic solutions of a VPN, multi-factor authentication. It's not going to suffice. This is really pushing us, Wyatt, in the direction of things like real, no kidding implementation of zero trust architectures, of saying I need to verify the device and the user. I need to inspect the traffic. Yes, it has to be encrypted, but I actually need to look at it. I need to not grant them more privileges than they need to get the task at hand done. We've talked about zero trust for a long time. I think this new environment is going to really push us to implement it, because the hybrid environment, it's not going to look like the status quo ante. It's not going to look like what we've been living through for the last 18 months. It's going to be different.
Let me take that a level deeper. What implications will hybrid access have on the structure and the flexibility of IT services and their underlying networks?
So Wyatt, I would put it simply, it's going to be a work from anywhere environment, not a work from the office, not a work from home. You're going to have to be able to support them anywhere. You should be trying to say, I'm about enabling connections between the device within a user's hands, the data, and the compute resource, regardless of where they are. So I think this increasingly is going to push organizations in two directions: in the direction of an accelerated migration to the cloud for everything from software as a service to infrastructure as a service and platform as a service, which is going to bring challenges of security, but at least we know the cloud will be there and will be accessible from any of those venues. And software-defined networking, to say, if when we're back in the office, I may not have an assigned office. I may be in a hoteling arrangement. I may bring my own device with me instead of having an assigned workstation because I'm only there one day a week. So again, being able to set the network configuration up on the fly will matter. So I think it's a combination of this is going to accelerate the ongoing migration to the cloud, and it's going to make software-defined networking in the fashion of things like software-defined wide area networking, SD-WAN, and SD-branch become a whole lot more compelling for organizations from an IT and frankly from a security perspective.
Well, I think you would agree too that threat actors are also adopting hybrid approaches to their attacks, right? In order to move more swiftly across networks and exploit some vulnerabilities that emerge there. Can you describe some of these new methods of attacks and what CISOs really should be on the lookout for?
So Wyatt, that's a great question. And let me give you one that I think is probably top of mind for most of us right now, which is ransomware. I mean, ransomware, big semi-existential threat to organizations because it makes the damage immediate and in your face, and therefore you have to respond to it in real time. Most of that ransomware comes in through spear phishing. So we talk about one element of defense is the human firewall. We have to train the users. The problem is the adversaries are starting to harness AI and ML against us. It is easy. You can go to the internet and go to GitHub and find the packages to do this, to generate from a small sample of email, mine or yours, content that is indistinguishable from what you or I would write. So the new intruder now is going to come in, he's going to take our credentials as they do, he's going to take our address book as they do, and now they're going to take our inbox and outbox, so that they'll use this simple off-the-shelf AI and ML so that when they send the spam out from our address, it's going to look close to indistinguishable from what we sent. So the bait for spear phishing is getting a whole lot tastier. So that's part of what I worry about. The other is the ability to use AI and ML to optimize their computer code, to actually step back and say, okay, so this piece of malware seemed to have a really good batting average for breaking into victims. And this one had a really good batting average for moving laterally. So AI tells me these are two high-performing modules. Why don't I combine them into a single piece of code? It's as if Dr. Frankenstein had AI and ML to optimize the design of the monster. That scares me.
That is a scary thought. Well, lastly, how can organizations expand their security capabilities to help security teams keep pace with these changing hybrid environments?
So this one is a challenge because people in security discipline are very problem focused. They look at the breach, the problem in front of them, and the upgrade, and they don't step back to see that the forest has changed. They don't see the forest for the trees. They don't see the landscape. And what I mean by that is there has been a trend of emerging capability in the cybersecurity industry. We have been building these ecosystems of interoperable capability, and we're starting to power them. Not starting to, we're getting fairly mature at powering them by AI and ML. And what do I mean by that? One reason we always talk, of course, about cybersecurity is so hard because of the attack surface. It's growing in size and complexity. Look at this approach as a way of saying, if I have an ecosystem across my attack surface, I'm making that liability, its complexity and its size, an actual asset. It becomes a sensor, a report, a constellation of sensors, like a barometer, like a thermometer, that AI and ML can use to help me tell what's going on my network, what's normal, what's abnormal and just plain weird from what's abnormal and malicious. And then the same things that are sensors are also controls. So once I see it, I sense it and see that it's bad, I can react to it everywhere. And this is built in. This is not like you have to say, I'm going to go buy one of those AI things. It's integral to the existing products that organizations are starting to look at as they make their upgrades. So as someone who was a federal executive, who did big dollar procurement, we usually made decisions based on some combination of the two P's of price and performance. And I say, let's add a third P to that equation, platform. Recognize these platform ecosystems exist. And if you break yourself from the mold of saying, I want to bring a magic quadrant focus to saying, I'm going to just buy best of breed, and say, I need to recognize that there's these ecosystems, it allows you to get that benefit without having to consciously say, oh, and I'm going to need to run AI. You can do it if you want, but otherwise it's happening behind the scenes.
Well, I appreciate those recommendations. Jim Richberg, thank you as always for taking some time to share your insights on cybersecurity and for joining us today. And I want to thank our audience as well for tuning in.
Thanks, Wyatt.